Have to do something.
I'm being exceedingly quiet.
For making this session of the Eastern Maine Cancer Series. I am Michael Reisman, Executive Director of the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center, and a member of the Planning Committee of the Eastern Maine Cancer Series. Yesterday we had two great sessions, one on dealing with men with living with cancer, and then in the afternoon, the session was about nutrition and cancer. So today, this is a day that we're talking positivity, and so we're excited about that. Some general housekeeping items. You know where your restrooms are, so you take care of that yourself. We will be keeping all in attendance on mute during the keynote speech. Some people may experience better connectivity by turning off their video during the presentations if there's an issue with that. After the keynote speech, if you have a question, please ask it using the chat feature addressed either to everyone or to host. During the patient panel and the question and talk and the talk by Susan Hess, also please keep yourself muted. And if you have any questions, use the chat feature that will be monitored at all times. The keynote address will be recorded. There will be an exercise / stretch break at 11 o'clock, and that'll be led by Stacy Giancarlo. There also will be an evaluation for today's session that we'll be doing at 12:15 after the talk by Susan Hess. We have added a breakout session and fellowship session to the schedule that will happen at 12:30. Yesterday they worked out very well. We're excited to have them again today. And also this afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Eastern Maine Cancer Series will continue with an afternoon session starting at 4 o'clock dealing with spirituality and cancer. If you experience any technical issues, you can reach out to Ann West at 207-801-8237 or to the Beth Wright Center at 664-0339. And we'll put those numbers on the chat for you to look at. Well, this year has brought many changes, and the annual Down East Living with Cancer Conference and the Washington County Cancer Conference are no exceptions. For many years, these important events were held in person, giving access to resources and offering empowerment to those who have received a cancer diagnosis. These two conferences are now joining forces this year with a new conference, the Bangor Region Cancer Conference, to create the Eastern Maine Cancer Series. The conference committee worked tirelessly to put together a program that will connect people, even though we are viewing it from our separate homes. We hope that at least once today you are able to forget that you are watching this on a screen and become so involved in the discussion that it feels like you are sitting around the table with the other participants, sharing information and support. If and when that happens, our goal for today will be realized. We dedicate this year's conference to the memory of Lucille LaRue. Lucille helped to start the Washington County Cancer Conference in 2007 and was an integral and much beloved member of the Eastern Maine Cancer Series Planning Committee. Lucille passed away on October 29th, but leaves a legacy of caring, compassion, and kindness that we will do our best to honor both today and in all that we do going forward. Lucille, you are missed, but never, ever forgotten. I want to thank our sponsors for the conference, and many of these have been longtime sponsors of the previous conferences. At the platinum level, it's the Northern Light Cancer Institute and the Maine Health Access Foundation. At the gold level, the Bangor Federal Credit Union, Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center, Christine B. Foundation, Mark Wright Disposal, Tradewinds Marketplace. At the silver level, there's Down East Community Hospital, Island Health and Wellness Foundation, Mount Desert Island Hospital, and the Northern Light Health System. And I would also like to, this conference series, couldn't have been made possible without the planning committee that have been working, this committee has been working since, I believe, April or May. And in the last 3 months, we've been meeting weekly. The member of the committees include Matt Dexter, Executive Director of the Christine B. Foundation, Nancy Files, who's a board member of the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center, Angela Focusata, who, from Healthy Acadia, who's the Washington County Cancer Patient Navigator, Amy Kerman, who's a program and volunteer coordinator at the Beth Wright Center, Nadine Lewis, who's a communication specialist at the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center, Katie Reed, who was working at Caring Connections during most of the planning session. She's recently left her post there and she's now working at Eastern Area Agency on Aging. John Rosenfeld, who's a cancer thriver, Jeff Scott, another cancer thriver, Donna Wiegle, a cancer thriver, Ann West, Executive Director of the Island Health and Wellness Foundation. And one more special thank you to Nadine Lewis for putting together the graphics for today's event. And she's been instrumental in getting the word out on today's event. So we're about ready to get going now into our first segment. We're here a minute or two early, but I'd like to introduce Lynn Asaf. Now, Lynn is an inpatient social worker at MDI Hospital, and like I mentioned, MDI Hospital is our sponsor of the series this year, and it has been a long-time sponsor of the conferences. And Lynn enjoys her work helping people during difficult times in their lives. She previously had been a member of the planning committee for the Downey's Living with Cancer conference for many years. Lynn's own experience of chronic illness in her 20s and 30s, and then cancer at age 40, fueled an abiding interest in the relationship between body and the relationship between body and mind, and in ways to promote health and to live well with illness. So I'm going to introduce Lynn. She can say a few words about MDI Hospital, and then she's going to be introducing our keynote speaker, Donna Wiegle. Lynn?
Hi, good morning. I am thrilled to be here and was sad this year to not be able to be on the planning committee because the meetings were in the mornings when I had other meetings at the hospital. It is an honor to be part of the conference and a great honor to introduce my friend Donna Wiegle as our keynote speaker this morning. I don't get to see her half often enough. She lives on Swans, and you know that ain't easy to get to. Donna is a 30-year cervical cancer survivor, now 4 years into her cancer journey with stage 4 ovarian cancer. It's not been easy for her, but the spirit and the things she has done have they never cease to blow me away. She has an amazing way of putting one foot in front of the other, continuing to live her life in a positive, purposeful, meaningful way. Her mission is to help other women learn about the symptoms of ovarian cancer and to help them advocate for themselves with their medical providers. And she's done a ride across the country on her motorcycle to help facilitate that. It's an amazing adventure. She has found support with friends she's made at the Turning the Tide Ovarian Cancer Retreat. Her greatest joy is spending time on her Harley. She completed the solo ride in 2019, traveling across the U.S. to raise awareness of ovarian cancer and raise money for several nonprofit cancer organizations, including the Beth C. Wright Center. She runs a health center on Swans Island, and we at the hospital don't know what we would do without her. She takes care of people out there and keeps in great touch with us, and she's just a wonder. Donna, we love you.
Thank you, Lynn. And thank you, Michael, for your introduction today. And Lynn, thank you for that introduction. You've pretty much talked about everything that I'm going to talk about today. So, so it's really great to be here today with the Eastern Maine Cancer Series. I was on the planning group as well, and I know how much work went into preparing this, especially since we couldn't have an in-person conference. So I'd like to everybody who's joining us today for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I was joined yesterday's session which was men and their cancers, and that will be a hard act to follow. The gentleman did a really great job yesterday presenting all their information. So I think I'd like to start out with screen sharing. Amy has set me up for that, so let me see if I can make that work and get to where I need to start out my presentation today. So as you know, today's topic is staying positive while navigating cancer. And I have been an ovarian cancer patient since 2016, and I'll talk a little bit about my cancer journey as well today. But first, I want to start out by sharing two very brief stories about two friends of mine who have lost their battle with cancer in the last 10 days. And in thinking about my friends, they were both the most positive people, both before their cancer and during their cancer. And that's why I wanted to share them with you today, and really to dedicate my talk today. My first friend is Dawn. This is Dawn and her dog, Abby. Dawn was a woman that I met at the Tide Ovarian Cancer Retreat a few years ago. I've been attending that retreat for 5 years now. Dawn was such a breath of fresh air and such a joy and such a wonderful person. And Dawn lost her battle with ovarian cancer on November 6th, just 12 days ago, at the age of 54. But Dawn transitioned from Brigham and Women's Hospital at the end of her life to a hospice facility in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And I got an email the day she was transferred, and it had a picture attachment of Dawn, and I was kind of nervous about opening it up, but I did. And it was Dawn in the bed at the hospice, and she had this huge clear glass bowl on her lap that was just filled with chocolate ice cream, balls and balls and balls of chocolate ice cream, more chocolate ice cream than anybody should be eating. And Dawn said, "This is really a great place. They have chocolate ice cream 24/7. And I thought to myself, my gosh, what a great attitude all the way up to the end of her life. So I want to dedicate it to Dawn today, my talk, and as well to my friend Sam, who you can tell by his picture was a positive guy. So Sam was a Shriner, and he belonged to the Anna Shrine, and he was in the clown division for 23 years, and his clown name was Chopsticks. And this is a little baseball card that he gave me the very first time I met him. Sam was also a member of the Masonic Lodge, and he served in the U.S. Marine Corps as well. Sam's life was really one of service, and Sam lost his battle with liver cancer on November 14th, 2020, just 4 days ago at the age of 59. This has been a hard week for me leading up to this conference. I also lost my mother-in-law to cancer just this past Sunday. So 3 people in my life, 2 friends and my mother-in-law within the last 10 days. But rise to the challenge, and the talk today is about moving forward in a positive way. So I want to dedicate this to Dawn and Sam today, and my mother-in-law as well. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. So as Lynn said, I live on Swans Island with my husband, Charlie, and our 2 rescue dogs, Roscoe and Betsy. They've been great. The dogs are great. My life is really, a nice life out here. My husband had been coming here since he was a small boy, and I started vacationing with him on Swans Island probably more than 20, 30 years ago. We started out vacationing together here, and then we bought a house in 2001 and moved here full-time just a year later. My work, as Lynn said, I run the small health center here on Swans Island. My community has about 350 year-round residents. We are served by the Maine State Ferry Service, which is a 6-mile crossing from Bass Harbor. It takes about 30 minutes to get to the island. I've been working at the clinic on Swans Island since it opened in 2007. I have a degree in medical technology, but we didn't have a nurse or a doctor out here, so I just volunteered, to help set up a clinic for my community, and have been really the sole person running the clinic for the past 13 years. It's been challenging with my cancer, but I've been able to maintain it. It's a part-time job, and I love the job. I love serving my community in the way that I do. And I'd say from a medical viewpoint, I really do find cancer fascinating. I just wish that I was not a cancer patient. This is a picture of me from September of 2016 with Roscoe after I stopped my chemotherapy treatment. Roscoe has been like a therapy dog. From the beginning of my illness, he would climb up in the bed with me and just gently lay so I could feel him next to me. And he would stay there with me as long as I needed him. So I can't imagine not having Roscoe in my life. So I want to tell you a little bit about my journey with cancer. This is my second go-round with cancer. I had cervical cancer in 1990, had a partial hysterectomy because I was 30 years old at the time. I'm now 60 years old. They left my ovaries behind so that I wouldn't go into menopause. Hindsight is 20/20, and it's too bad they didn't take the ovaries at that point. I had 25 really great years of life after that. You know, I was very athletic, outdoorsy, doing all kinds of stuff. Really didn't have any health issues during that 25-year span until I was diagnosed in 2016 with stage 3B low-grade ovarian cancer, low-grade serous ovarian cancer. Low-grade does not respond well to chemotherapy. It's a slower dividing, cancer cells divide much slower. So the treatment is really difficult for low-grade. So I was told I wasn't a candidate for surgery, but I was able to get into Dana-Farber in Boston for second opinion, met with a surgeon there from Brigham and Women's and was confident they would do my surgery to remove my ovaries. But they said my treatment for my cervical cancer, which was surgery plus pelvic radiation, 6 weeks of pelvic radiation, had done so much damage to the pelvic area that I really wasn't a candidate for surgery. So I still have my ovaries and have ovarian cancer. So that was going to be challenging. I asked at the time at Dana-Farber for an honest prognosis. I stressed the word honest twice so that I would be told the truth. So I was given a 5-year prognosis, and that 5-year time frame will roll around this coming April. I don't believe that's going to be my fate at all. I believe I'll be around for a lot longer than that 5 years. So I was offered weekly chemo, and it's exactly what it says, weekly chemotherapy every 7 days for 18 straight weeks. They deliver chemo in that fashion for low-grade patients because of the slow dividing nature of the cancer cells. It's supposed to be more effective. I knew from the start I was never going to be cured. I was never going to probably reach remission or be NED, no evidence of disease. But I signed up for this weekly chemo and chose to have my chemotherapy at MDI Hospital under the supervision of Dr. Philip Brooks. I had a hard go with it. I knew it was going to be hard going every 7 days. I suffered a collapsed lung when I was getting my chemo put in on week number 2 after four unsuccessful attempts to get an IV started. There's a 1% chance of this happening, and I just happened to be in the 1%. I ended up in the hospital for 11 days at that point, and had 2 chest tubes. The first chest tube failed to do what it needed to do to correct the problem, and they inserted a second chest tube. Chest tubes are about the size of a garden hose, and that was probably my low point in this whole journey. In my last 4.5 years was that hospitalization. During that time, all of my hair fell out from my first 2 weeks of chemotherapy, and I was tied with a suction tube to a pump on the wall. I couldn't leave the room. I couldn't go anywhere. So I was a prisoner of that room for 11 days, and it was really a challenging time for me. But I got out and went back to my chemotherapy sessions. I had all the usual side effects. I had low red blood cell count, low hemoglobin, low platelet count, low white blood cell count, things that really interfered with the delivery of my therapy every week. And that's very common for people who are getting chemotherapy every week. But I proceeded on until the 10th treatment. When I got to the 10th treatment, the nurse, every week they would ask me, do you have any tingling and numbness in your hands and feet? Looking for neuropathy. One of the side effects of one of the 2 drugs, the Taxol that I was getting, and my other drug was Carbo. On week number 10, I left on a Friday, and I said, I'm having the slightest tingling in my feet. And they said, well, you'll see the oncologist on Thursday. Make sure to tell him. Well, I didn't have to wait till Thursday. By the very next day, my feet were on fire. I couldn't walk. I could barely walk. I couldn't put shoes on. I couldn't put socks on. I couldn't even pull a sheet up in the bed over my feet. It was really terrible. I went in to see the oncologist that week, and he gave me a week off from treatment to see if my feet improved. On day 6, the nurse called and asked if I was coming back the following week, and I said, no, I'm quitting chemo. So I quit frontline chemo. I don't think very many people do that as an option. It was probably one of the hardest decisions that I had to make. But I was, I was told that if I continued on, my neuropathy could get worse and it could be permanent. That didn't work for my lifestyle at all. I'm very active. I ride a motorcycle. I do all kinds of things, and I needed my feet to function when I needed them to function. So I was rolling the dice on quitting chemotherapy and hoping for quality of life. And that's always been my goal, quality of life. I sometimes say I don't care how long I live, I only care how well I live. And that has served me pretty well. So I had a treatment to try. It was called letrozole. It is one of the estrogen blocking drugs. They're in a class of drugs called aromatase inhibitors. There's 3 of those that get used very frequently for breast cancer patients after they're finished their treatment to prevent a recurrence. There's probably some people on the call today that might be on one of these drugs. not often used for ovarian cancer patients, but my cancer was estrogen positive or estrogen receptive. So by taking the estrogen blocking drug, it was cutting off the food source, to simplify it, that was feeding the cancer. The drug worked really well for me, but it had a lot of really negative side effects. Rapid bone density loss, terrible joint pain, muscle ache, terrible insomnia, just a lot of things. Hot flashes that were way worse than any normal menopausal hot flashes, because the little bit of estrogen that I had left as a postmenopausal woman was removed from my body. So this has been my biggest problem, this letrozole. I have stopped it as of 3 months ago. I'd been on it for over 4 years, but I just was sick of the side effects. So I'm contemplating my next move in treatment. Last fall, I had a tumor removed that was in the mammary lymph node chain. It was not breast cancer, but it was a spread of ovarian cancer to the chest. When the biopsy came back, it was biopsied as high-grade serous, not the low-grade serous that I had originally been diagnosed with. So it was a different type of ovarian cancer. Because of the distant spread to the chest, and it's a much more aggressive cancer than the low-grade, I'm now considered, I've been restaged as stage 4 ovarian cancer. So you're probably wondering, if this is to talk about staying positive, why am I sharing so much negative stuff at the beginning of this? Well, that's the reality of living with cancer. And the longer you're on this journey, the more you realize that. But stay tuned, the positive part is coming right up. Before I get to the positive things that I want to share with you today, my next part is really taking care of business. And this is really aimed at people who are newly diagnosed cancer patients. I think some of the important things that you really need to do in the beginning of your journey is you need to be able to overcome the initial shock of a cancer diagnosis. I think there's really nothing worse than a doctor sitting you down and saying, you have cancer or you have a malignancy. Your mind just goes in 1,000 different directions of what that might look like, and mostly it goes in a negative direction. And so you jump onto Google, you start looking up all the information. There's good and there's bad of that. I do advocate for people to be well educated about their cancer, but you can find a lot of stuff by Googling that really will take you down a rabbit hole that you do not want to go down. So I would caution you, use a Dana-Farber site or a Mayo Clinic, but maybe not Web Doctor MD or Facebook to get your information. And then I think you have to shift gears and get through your frontline treatment. That's really your new job. You have to look at it as if it's your job. You're going to meet with a lot of providers. You're going to make a treatment plan. Maybe you're going to have a surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, combination of different treatments. And that's what you've got to focus on, just getting that done. And then I think really the most important thing for you to be able to move on and move on in a positive way is really to accept what has happened to you. And that's hard, at first you're in a denial, but at some point you have to be able to accept this so that you can continue to live your life in a positive way. So I would really stress to you, next steps, really protect your mental health. And by that, I mean, cancer has affected your body, your physical being, but the stuff that happens to your mental health is overwhelming. I heard this in some of the men on the patient panel yesterday talking about the anxiety and the stress that they felt that happened to them as a result of their cancer diagnosis. So I say, identify what's important in your life and just get rid of the rest. If you're asked to join the PTA and you don't want to do it, just say no. It's okay to say no. You're going to need the energy that you have to take care of you. And you're going to want to focus on the things that bring you a reward and joy and happiness in your life. That's really what's most important once you're living with cancer. And I say, surround yourself with positive people and dump the negative people in your life. This is really a hard thing to do. Some of these negative people in your life might be your own family members. It's really hard to dump family members. They might be your coworkers. They might be your friends, people at your church. Everybody wants to help you, but not everybody's bringing positivity in your life. So you've got to root that out. I'll just give you an example. I had to break up with my hairdresser. My hair has never looked as good as when I used to go to her, but I always left there feeling that she was negative and she was bringing me down. And that was really a hard thing. And I'd say, don't try to go it alone. Get some professional help. And by that, what do I mean? Well, I thought I could do it alone. I thought I was tough. I thought I had great mental health. I thought that I was, well educated about my cancer. But what happened to me is a couple years into my cancer journey, everything just became too much. And really for me, it was the financial burden of living long-term with cancer. My husband and I are self-employed. We paid our own health insurance. We had high deductible health care. every year I met that maximum out of pocket. Every year I had to pay multiple hospitals, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And finally, that financial burden was the piece that pushed me over the edge on top of everything else that I was dealing with. And so I sought some professional help. And who is that? What does that look like? Well, that can be a counselor, a psychiatrist, it could be a health coach, it could be a dietitian, it could be a personal trainer. Just depends on what you think is going to benefit you the most. So I first went to a therapist, a psychiatrist, and I knew in 5 minutes this was not the guy for me. I stayed the whole hour, but I realized it. And at the end, I said, I'll call you if I want to make a follow-up appointment. I just knew this wasn't a good fit. And it's okay if you start out with somebody to recognize it's not a good fit. You've got to find the right person. Later today, we're going to hear from a woman, Susan Hess, who will be talking to us. And she is the person that helped me the most. I found her through an ovarian cancer support group called Steps Through Ovarian Cancer. And she was only counseling women with ovarian cancer. So I found the right fit. Not only was Susan my professional help, she became my friend by the end of our time together. So other things, spirituality, religion, meditation, whatever is your way of really connecting to a positive presence. And you have to be open to something new. So none of that was going to be for me. I wasn't very religious. Spiritual, well, maybe I had some sense of that, but I didn't know what that really meant for me. And meditation, well, that wasn't going to work because you have to sit still for medication. Yoga, Reiki, all of that stuff was not my cup of tea because I'm on the go all the time. But what I found is I did have to open my mind to try something new. And I have embraced meditation recently. I do a meditation Zoom on Friday mornings at 9 o'clock, which has really been great. And I also downloaded an app onto my phone and my iPad called Calm, C-A-L-M. It's an app that has really been great for me. And it's allowed me to kind of slow down and try to just be present with myself. So that's been really helpful. You need to build a survivorship team, and I won't really go into that at length because that's what tomorrow's day of conference is about. But the survivorship team is who's going to help you, your oncologist, your primary care, your spouse, your main caregiver, family, friends, your health coach, your therapist, and you'll learn about that more tomorrow, but that's a critical piece as well. And then nature. Yesterday, a lot of the men on the men's conference were talking about maybe they were outdoorsmen, hunting, fishing, these types of things. I say go out and enjoy nature. Enjoy what's around you. And so I like to go boating with my husband and my dogs. We go to other islands and just go to the beach for the day or hike through the woods or things like that. Maybe your physical being will not allow that kind of strenuous exercise, but you can get in a car and drive down to Bar Harbor and sit on the pier and overlook the ocean, or drive around the Park Loop Road, or have someone drive you if you're not able to drive at this time. But get out of the house, get a change of scenery. It's so beneficial for you. So what else can you do? So one of the things I think is really critical is making connections with people and, my first line, pets. So get a pet if you don't have a pet and you have the ability to take care of a pet. I have my 2 dogs and they've really been great. Animals are so comforting to you. And then, they want to go out. They have to go out to go to the bathroom. They want you to feed them. They want you to give them snacks. They want you to walk them. Animals will get you up and get you moving. And I think that is so beneficial. Join a support group. And I say that for both the patient and the caregiver. A lot of times the caregivers are overlooked and missed out on this whole equation. I would say that in my relationship with my husband, that my cancer has been harder for him than it's been for me. I've had to endure the physical pain and some mental pain that comes with it. But my husband's a fixer. Most caregivers are fixers and they want to fix this for you and they can't. They just simply can't. And that's really hard on them. So they need support just as much as you as the patient need support. Today, as a result of the pandemic, it's one of the positives of the pandemic has made a lot of online options available to us that really weren't available previously. So these online options are a great way to create virtual support groups from the comfort of your own home. Right before when Lynn was doing the introduction, I was sitting here at my desk. I'm at the clinic now. And I'm like, why do I have my shoes on? I kicked my shoes off so my feet are comfortable so you can relax and enjoy and be comfortable and make your cup of tea and whatever from the comfort of your own home. And then I say, form a network of other cancer patients, people that understand what you're going through. Your caregiver, your loved ones, they want to help you, but they're not walking the walk that you're walking. And I have found a cancer buddies, I like to call them. So this is a screenshot from a Zoom conference with my Turning the Tide Ovarian Cancer ladies. There's a lot more ladies than what you see on the screen in this particular shot, but we meet in person when we can at Camp Kiev in Noblesboro. This year we did a virtual conference, but we're also meeting on Zoom several times a month for meditation, for just check-in, how you doing. So these are my cancer buddies. One of the negatives of having cancer buddies is sometimes they don't out-survive you and they will pass away, like my friend Dawn, who was part of this group. But the positives are so much more than the negatives of having cancer buddies. So I would strongly encourage you to try to find somebody, if you're a lung cancer patient, somebody with lung cancer. If you're ovarian cancer, breast cancer. And they don't have to have the exact same type of cancer as you, but they're going to get it. They get it. And they're going to be your biggest support for you, really. Other things that I say is you have to take care of your whole being. You know, you have your mental health, you have your physical being. So ways you can do that: eat healthy, work with a dietitian if you need help with healthy eating. You know, make sure you're doing the right thing for your type of cancer. I'm on a very specific diet that nobody would offer to anybody. It's no fruit, no vegetables, no seeds, no nuts, no beans. It's a low fiber diet, and it's a result of the pelvic radiation damage that I have that causes frequent bowel obstructions for me. You know, I was in the hospital 6 times last year, but yay, I've only been in the hospital twice this year, so it's been a much better year. Get some exercise. Talk with your medical team first about what you're allowed to do, and then get started. And don't be hard on yourself. I had that tumor removed last fall. A piece of my diaphragm was removed with that. When I got back home, I have a treadmill. I had previously been able to run a sub 10-minute mile on my treadmill. I started out walking in my slippers, in my nightgown at 1.2 miles an hour. That was the maximum speed I could do after that surgery. But I just kept at it and just kept at it, and then slowly improved over time. So exercise is critical, I think. And sometimes I think I just want to spend time alone, you know, so I can unwind, reflect, relax, take a nap. So I always had this theory about napping before cancer. This is my theory. Anybody that took a nap in the middle of the day was a lazy bum. That's just the way I was raised. You know, you work, you work, you work. Now I recognize that you have to listen to your body. If your body says you need to take a nap, don't try to push through that. Just lay down, take a nap. And then get your mind off your cancer. Read a good book that takes you somewhere else. Watch a movie so you're not thinking about what's going on with you. Get a good night's sleep. This one is critical, but it's really hard for a lot of us to do. I have tried Ambien, CBD oil, melatonin, you name it. I've tried, and I'm now using my Calm app. My meditation app is working pretty well for me to be able to get to sleep at night. But that's critical, that your body can rest and repair overnight. And then I always believe this, wholeheartedly, I believe this: live a purposeful life. And what does that mean to you? What is a purposeful life, a life with purpose? And how can you do this with cancer? So I like to say that the cancer is one piece of you, but is not the whole of you. And if you can somehow kind of compartmentalize that cancer, even though it's affecting the whole of you, you can go on and remember the things that you really love to do. So, of course, that's all sounds great. But what if you're having a bad day or a bad week or even a bad month? So that's okay. And that's really to be expected. I mean, look what you're going through. You've got cancer. And it really is okay to feel sorry for yourself, to be angry at times, to be frustrated, and even depressed at times. But take it from me, you don't want to get stuck in those bad places, because if you get stuck there, it's going to be so much harder to get yourself back out of that negative place that you're in. You need to find your meaning in life again. What is your passion? What was your passion before cancer? What did you love to do? Were you an outdoorsman? Did you fish and hunt? Were you a quilter? Were you a baker? You know, spend time with your grandchildren. What is it that brings joy to your life? And I really believe this, that we can choose to give cancer the power to take that all away from us, or we can choose to take the power back and live through our cancer and live in a really positive way. So this has all been a lot of things thrown at you very quickly about what I think can help from my experience on a 4.5-year journey now with my current cancer. But I want to shift gears, and I want to tell you a little bit about what fuels me, what my passion is, and really what keeps me going. And Lynn alluded to this in the introduction. So my passion is riding motorcycles. I'm the second person in this picture of a group of 5 women from a ride we took this summer up to Rangeley, Maine, and we were at Height of Land, a very scenic overlook. We pulled in and had a picture taken. I love riding motorcycles, and I've been riding for a long time. And I really thought, what could be my purpose in life, living with this cancer? How can I turn this really negative into something really positive? And so I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, I think that if I got a teal motorcycle, I could ride across the country. Teal is the color that represents ovarian cancer, just like pink is breast cancer. Every cancer has its color that represents it. And so I told my husband I was going to get a teal motorcycle and make this ride across the country. My husband said, oh, no, you have a perfectly good motorcycle. But I said, but it's burgundy. It just doesn't fit the bill. And so I was able to find a teal and white Harley Davidson motorcycle that I was able to purchase. And we did some modifications. And I came up with this plan working with some of my Turning the Tide Ovarian Cancer Retreat friends who encouraged me, strongly encouraged me, told me, yes, I could do it. I didn't know if I could do it. One of the women in particular, Margaret Mastrangelo, was really my go-to person. She came up with the name for this trip, Teal on Wheels. I didn't really like it at first, Teal on Wheels, I didn't like it. But that's what I called it because I didn't have another name for it. And then it kind of grew on me. So I put together this trip called Teal on Wheels, Ovarian Cancer Awareness Tour. My plan was to ride across the United States and just talk to women, share my story with women, educate women about the signs and symptoms of ovarian cancer. So my island supporters, on the day that I left I knew I couldn't ride across the country to California and back. Like I said, I've been in the hospital a total of 6 times last year, but I thought I could ride one way. So I started out, I left in late August. I had shipped my bike to Coos Bay, Oregon. These folks, my neighbors, all dressed in teal, and met me at the ferry to bid me a fond farewell and good wishes on my trip across the country. I shipped the bike to Coos Bay, Oregon, to Highway 101 Harley Davidson dealer, which was the westernmost Harley Davidson dealer in the continental United States, right on the Pacific Coast Highway. I flew out there in late August. I wanted to do the ride over September, which was Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I packed 1,000 ovarian cancer symptom cards in my saddlebags before I shipped the bike. And that was my goal, to give away 1,000 ovarian cancer symptom cards to women across the country. I started to raise money because I also wanted to donate money to several ovarian cancer nonprofits at the end of the trip. So I set up a GoFundMe page, and money was coming in, and I got started on my journey. So I want to take you on a little 15-second ride. I hope this will work for you on your end. It's just a little video to give you a sense of riding on the motorcycle with me, and then we'll continue on the trip. Oops. Okay. So I picked up the bike in Coos Bay, Oregon, packed all my stuff on, and my first stop was California. I thought, okay, I'm 180 miles from the Redwood National Forest. Why don't I just go there? I didn't have any particular itinerary across the state. I hadn't made any reservations ahead of time. It was kind of a fly by the seat of your pants trip. My previous long distance trip was 1,800 miles in Canada. I expected this trip to be about 6,000 miles to get home, zigzagging across the country. And I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if my health would hold out. I didn't know if I'd had enough endurance energy to be able to make this trip. But I was starting the trip and knew that if I only made it as far as Kansas and had to ship the bike home and fly home, it would be okay. I would have raised a lot of awareness just in raising the money. I was raising awareness. I said I packed 1,000 symptom cards in my saddlebag, so I started handing out cards to women and men. I never thought I would hand out to men, but sometimes I was meeting men places, and I would just say, do you have a wife? Do you have a mother? Do you have a daughter? Could you share this information? So I wanted to get my information in their hands so that they could better advocate for themselves later. I wanted them to know the symptoms of ovarian cancer: bloating, back pain, frequent urination, change in bowel habits, feeling full as you're just starting to eat. There's no big symptom for ovarian cancer, and there's no screening test for ovarian cancer. And this is why most patients are diagnosed stage 3 or 4 rather than stage 1 or 2. My goal was so that women could get a stage 1 or 2 diagnosis, that they'd be able to advocate for themselves if they knew the symptoms and knew what tests to ask for. So these are just some of the people. Everybody was so willing to pose for a picture. And I took pictures of them because I wanted to come back home and be able to be responsible to the people that had supported me, my donors. Did I do what I said I was going to do on this trip. So I was lucky enough to be able to pick. I had a map book, and I would pick a route that took me someplace that I wanted to see. This is Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. My goal was meeting women, so I could meet women anywhere. I went to Graceland. I went to Vanderbilt's estate. The Biltmore. I went to a bunch of national parks in different places. I could meet women in the motel parking lot. I could meet them in a gas station parking lot. Places like that. So these are some of the people that I met along the way, the guy up in the top there with the facial piercings, we rode together for over 100 miles one day. The girls up in the top behind me, one of them was the manager of the Best Western Motel that I stayed at. And when I rolled in that night on my bike, she came out and, oh, I ride, and my friend rides. Can we ride with you tomorrow? So they rode over 120 miles with me one day. I was headed east, and they had to turn around and go back west. The girls down in the bottom with helmets, that was at a gas station in Missouri. And then this lower picture with the beer glasses, actually a friend of mine who lives in Colorado, so we were able to connect and go out for pizza and a beer. So it was nice to see a familiar person on the trip. But everybody was great. I mean, they all were receptive of my story and things like that. So it was really wonderful. Some would share back their own cancer journeys. It was very rare that I met anybody that had any familiarity with ovarian cancer. Sometimes women would say, oh, I've got that covered to get a pap test. And I had to educate them that pap test did not screen for ovarian cancer. So here was a picture. I was getting ready to race this train in Oregon. It was a lot of trains out in the West. So it was kind of a fun thing, riding parallel of the train tracks sometimes. Could you get faster than the train? Was the train faster than you? Things like that. But this was my bike every day with, packed up. I had a net thing over the top. I could shove Gatorade or water or a snack in there, and my map book, so I could easily access those things if I needed to get them to them during the day. Zion National Park. So my husband actually flew out to Salt Lake City, and he met me in Utah. He rented a motorcycle for 3 days and rode Southern Utah with me. We did Zion National Park, Arches National Park, and Bryce Canyon National Park. And our hottest riding day, or my hottest riding day, was in Southern Utah, 106 degrees. And on a motorcycle, it was very uncomfortable. You've got jeans, boots, helmet, everything. So that was uncomfortable. My coldest riding day was the last day. I made it from Augusta, Maine, home, 38 degrees when we left out of Augusta that morning. So you had to have gear for hot riding and cold riding. This was crossing the Rocky Mountains. I chose to cross at Monarch Pass, where the elevation was 11,312 feet versus Pikes Peak, where it was over 16,000 feet. I knew there was a chance of snow at the top, and there was snow. You can't see it in this picture, but there was some snow at the top at the higher peaks. It was a tremendously windy day coming out of Gunnison, Colorado to get to Monarch Pass. And I stopped at the bottom of the pass, and I honestly didn't have the courage to go up across the Rocky Mountains. The wind was blowing so hard that I had to lean the bike over to keep the bike upright into the wind. And I stopped at the bottom and said, I don't think I can do this. And I thought about my options. Well, my options were to go to Arizona, New Mexico, and cross somewhere much further south. And that was going to be a lot more miles. So I just had to muster up the courage. There were several times on this trip where I had to dig deep for the courage to really get through where I was. And by the time I got down to the bottom of Monarch Pass, it wasn't nearly as bad as I had made it to be in my own mind. Get your kicks on Route 66 coming through Kansas. I rode mostly back roads, not a lot of highway riding at all, which was great because I wanted to see the country. I didn't want to be on the highways. This was a group of motorcycle riders that I met last year in Rockland, Maine. They live in Virginia. They Rockland, Maine, and came up for the Lobster Festival in Rockland. I was staying at the same hotel with them in Rockland for a couple nights. I had business in Rockland, and they were on their bikes, and I happened to be on my bike. So we just formed this friendship over the breakfast facility at the hotel, and later had drinks that night. And they knew I was coming across the country, and so they wanted me to stay with them. They insisted I stay with them. So I spent 2 nights with them. We rode the Blue Ridge Parkway together, and they had a great big barbecue and invited all their friends over. It was really, really wonderful. This was arriving into Pennsylvania. I stopped here. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and they must have changed the state slogan since I lived there, because pursue your happiness, which was perfect for the trip, didn't ring a bell to me at all. And so, but it was kind of perfect that it kind of summed up the trip. In Pennsylvania, this group of friends that are all my high school friends, they knew about my trip. They got these t-shirts made, and they were having a beef and beer to help me raise money. I got to Pennsylvania a few days early, so I got to kind of rest up and just ride around my hometown and the area that I grew up, which was really great. So these folks had a beef and beer and raised over $6,000 towards my $50,000 fundraising goal. So my husband on the left next to me, he rode down from Maine to meet me there and ride that last about 600-mile leg home with me. So it was really great. My family was there, my husband's family, 3 out of the 4 people from our wedding, high school friends, college friends, former coworkers. So it was really a great way to get towards the end of the trip and be able to spend time with people that I knew well and that I loved and that loved me. This was my last day in Augusta, leaving down from the state capitol. We had previously arranged, my husband had arranged for some riding friends to meet us in Augusta to ride that last leg home with me. And they were friends from the Masonic Lodge. The Masonic Lodge has a riding group called the Widow's Sons is the name of their group. And they were some of my earliest supporters, both financially, here they are, both financially and mentally. I bought my bike from one of the Masons. It had been his wife's bike and it was too big of a bike for a brand new rider. She was a brand new rider. So they escorted me from Augusta back to Ellsworth to Masonic Lodge. I just want to point out the guy on the tip part of the flag on my right with all the patches down the front. That's my friend Chopsticks from the clown picture earlier. We became friends over riding, so he was with me that day as well. So I want to share a little story that involves the Masonic Lodge. We're almost at the end here, but early on when I bought the bike and became acquainted with the Masonic Lodge riders, they invited me to ride on a charitable ride. It was June. It was before I even left on the trip last year. And so we did this ride. We ended up at the Millbridge Masonic Lodge. I was handing out ovarian cancer symptoms cards then and telling people my story. And I shared a bunch of cards with people. Never thought anything about it. When I got home from my ride last October, early October, I got a Facebook private message from a woman named Mandy. I didn't know who she was. I didn't recognize her name at all. It was 4 short paragraphs in a Facebook message. She said, "You met my husband, Brent, at the Millbridge Masonic Lodge." She said, "You gave him one of your cards and you were telling your story that it took you over 2.5 years to get a diagnosis." She said, "I've been sick for 2 years." She's a 39-year-old woman. And she said, "Armed with your card," she said, "I went to my gynecologist and she said, I suggested that perhaps I had ovarian cancer. My gynecologist said, oh, your problem's not gynecological in nature." But Mandy insisted. She said she had these symptoms and it told what test to ask for. So she asked for a transvaginal ultrasound. The doctor, just to appease her, did order the transvaginal ultrasound. Mandy was diagnosed with stage 2 ovarian cancer. And she wrote to me she had been down to Boston to have her surgery. She chose to go to Boston. And she wrote, the last paragraph she wrote was, "You saved my life and I can never repay you." I don't believe I saved her life, but maybe I helped her to get an earlier diagnosis, which was really the whole goal of this trip across the country, so that women knew the symptoms, women knew what to ask for, that they would get a stage 1 or stage 2 diagnosis and not a stage 3 or stage 4 diagnosis. So by receiving that message from Mandy, who I'm now Facebook friends with, we write back and forth all the time. We have yet to meet in person because of the pandemic. But by receiving that message from Mandy, I knew that what I had set out to do, I had achieved. And I never expected to hear back from any women, and to hear back that quickly, it was really pretty amazing. So this is just some stats on the trip: 6,198 miles, and about 5,000 of those miles I rode solo from Coos Bay, Oregon to Swans Island. I traveled through 19 different states. I was away from home for 40 days. I told my husband I'd be gone for 30 days, but I had some health issues on the road that slowed me down. I put mileage on the bike on 37 of those days, sometimes over 300 miles, one day 12 miles, all depended on what was happening, how I was feeling. I distributed 770 ovarian cancer symptom cards. It's really the only part of my goal that I feel I failed on, but I have since given out over 1,000 cards because I continue to give out cards all the time, no matter where I go. I have them either in my back pocket or in my messenger bag that I carry. I rode to 8 national parks, a lot of national monuments, lots of national forests. I rode through rain, hail, thunderstorms, strong wind, and oppressive heat. So I say 1 motorcycle, 1 woman, 1 mission, and I would add mission complete. I wanted to include this slide, and I believe when you absolutely believe in yourself and your ability to succeed, nothing can stop you. And you can't do it alone. You need the support. I needed the support of the people who helped me to raise the money. I needed my husband's support to help me modify the bike. I just needed support from a lot of different places. The women at the Turning the Tide, my friend Margaret in particular, to be able to achieve this. And also, I needed the support of Michael Reisman. So I want to thank Michael and the board of directors at the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center. I needed a fiscal sponsor, somebody who would handle the money that was coming in. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't have time to create a 501c3. So I went to Michael and said, would the Beth C. Wright Cancer Center do this for me? And they graciously accepted that responsibility. They took all the money, they took care of it. And this picture was taken by Amy Kerman from the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center on the day that I went up to kind of reconcile all the money with Michael to find out how much money there was and then disperse that money out to the various nonprofits that I wanted to give money to. I gave $35,000 to Turning the Tide Ovarian Cancer Retreat because that is near and dear to my heart and always will be. I gave some money to the Beth C. Wright Cancer Center as well for the role that they played. And I could not have done it without Michael and the help that I got from the Beth C. Wright Cancer Resource Center. So I'm grateful for that. And I just would like to thank everybody for joining me today. I appreciate that you have come on to listen to my journey and get some positive tips as well. I don't expect most cancer patients to be able to do something of this magnitude. I didn't know if I could succeed, but but once I said it out loud, I was determined that it's what I was going to do, and I would say that it was extremely successful in every aspect. So thank you very much. I'm going to go back to stop sharing here, and I don't know what time. Oh, I would take some questions, I guess. If there are any questions.
I will help you monitor in the chat box if people want to put questions in. So far in the chat box, chopsticks is very popular. In fact, one person here went to high school with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're definitely honoring his memory today. So that's
awesome. I read his obituary online this morning, and it was more than I ever knew about him, and I was so inspired by his life of service.
Where did you find his obituary?
It was probably on my Facebook page. I'm not sure. Not sure. Yeah.
What area did he live in?
Millbridge and Bangor. It'd be in the Bangor Daily News. Bangor Daily News. Yeah.
Good to know. Does anyone else have questions? It's okay to ask questions too. I'm just monitoring the chat box to see if anyone would prefer to type them.
I could just make one comment. Thank you, Donna, for that great presentation. The one sad thing of us not all being together is we couldn't give you an amazing standing ovation for your talk and all you've done.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I see some clapping hands out there, so thank you.
Donna,
Yes.
I think you should make a CD of it.
Oh,
Honestly. And
they're recording the talk today, Margaret.
And then we can show it to some other support groups. Like I could get a couple and show it to two of the support groups in Syracuse.
Sure, I will put you in connection with Amy Kerman at the Beth C. Wright Cancer Center because I see it's being recorded. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret is from my Turning. Yes, Margaret is one of the women from my Turning the Tide Cancer retreat. Thank you, Margaret.
You are very welcome.
Can I ask a question, Donna?
Sure, Jeff.
Two questions. One is a very simple one. My first question is when you were saying about digging deep to get over that pass in Colorado, maybe it's a stretch to say there's a benefit of dealing with cancer is making you stronger. You find so you can dig deeper than what typically, if someone who had not dealt with cancer.
Oh, Jeff, I would definitely say yes. I would say since this journey with cancer, I say that I am fearless, that what's more scary than cancer? There's nothing more scary than cancer. So I would say it has allowed me in the other aspects of my life, like motorcycle riding, things like that, to really become calm when I used to ride and there'd be certain situations where I'd get nervous. I don't feel any nervousness. And I think, my husband said when I got home from that trip across the country, he felt I had become a much better rider as well. And so I think that I've been in situations with the bike that have been very challenging. The bike weighs almost 800 pounds. Moving it around in a parking lot that maybe isn't level or off-road and gravel, things like that. My confidence level has really grown. It was funny, at the bottom of that pass, I would stop for gas to gas up, and I was at a gas station, and a truck with a cap on the back pulled in, and 2 people got out, and I gave them a card. And I said, "Was it windy up top?" And the wife said, "Oh, no, it wasn't bad at all." And then the husband said, he said, "We were in a truck with the windows closed. How do you know if it was windy or not?" And when you ask somebody driving a vehicle versus a motorcycle, it's 2 totally different aspects that you're looking at. But yeah, I feel like that I have, I'm calmer. If I get bad news from my oncologist, that's okay. I'm kind of expecting that. I know I'm not going to be cured. And once I got that in my mind, it made my journey easier to be able to accept. And I have totally shifted a lot of my priorities as a result of this cancer.
And also too, I mean, maybe it also makes us more aware of how strong we really are, and gives us more confidence in our ability to cope with all realms of life. All the different things that are thrown at us, because you are more self-confident in the strength that you have inside. I think most of us have that strength, but we don't necessarily feel confident about it, or feel that give ourselves enough credit if we dig deep enough.
I would agree with that, Jeff. I would just say I'm a person who has never lacked self-confidence. It's just who I am. It's just how I'm wired, but I agree with that. I have seen people, I'm going to say, grow through their cancer, and develop qualities that they probably always had, and now they're more magnified because of the challenges that you've been through. It does in some way make you a different person.
And brings out the strengths that we have inside us internally, but maybe had not recognized it or had to ever dig that deep.
I would say this too about this trip across the country. I never would have done this if I didn't have cancer. I wouldn't have thought the clock was ticking on my life, so I wouldn't have felt the urgency of time. And I would not have taken that kind of time away from my life and my job and my husband and my family to do something like that. But it was because I have this cancer that I was able to give myself permission to do a wonderful adventure that took that much time.
Now, I think I recall a few months ago you had said you were planning on going out to, was it to Yellowstone this summer?
Yeah, that got canceled because of the pandemic.
But then you adjusted to that.
Yeah. So I was looking forward to a motorcycle trip to the Yellowstone, and instead I rode this summer over 6,700 miles in the state of Maine, exploring my home state, which I never would have done. I never would have spent that time going into all the little areas of Maine had it not been for the pandemic. So, you have to take a negative and turn it around and make a positive out of it.
That's a really good point for, I think, people to be out of your presentation, and that's really, we have to work with our limitations right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Donna. And actually we're going to see more of you, but we're about to move on to the patient panel part of the presentation, today's presentation. And Lynn, do you want to take over?
Sure. There we go. I want to make sure I wasn't mute. Donna, I want to